Well, hello, everybody. This is the Ask Paizo Anything Pathfinder edition. First, we're going to get started. Well, for one thing, I want to make clear we're going to avoid very specific rules questions. I'll let Jason explain whenever he introduces himself. But I'm here with Jason, Mike, and Avi, and let's get to some introductions, starting with Jason.
Well, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself? But
That's smart.
I'll go
Okay,
first.
I will do that.
We can come back to you. It's fine.
I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm
Yeah,
moderating.
go.
That's my call. No, I'm Adam Daigle. I am the director of game development here at Paizo. All right, now Jason, go for it.
All right. Sorry, I've added chaos already to the panel. Hi there, everybody. I am Jason Bullman. I'm the director of game design here at Paizo. And about the rules takes, long ago in the history of Paizo, in the early days of Pathfinder First Edition, we did precisely one panel where we were like, come, bring us your rules questions, and we will puzzle them out for you. And it was, to be quite honest, a disaster. It was slow and dull, and nobody wants to watch us page through books. So we're going to answer questions about the game. I'm happy to talk about, the game of Pathfinder, and I'm sure folks here are excited to talk about the world of Pathfinder. And we're going to talk about all those sorts of great things, but we're not going to do rules clarifications. It's just no fun for anybody. and with that, I'll pass it on.
Hey, I'm Michael Sayre, a designer here at Paizo. I was the design lead on Guns and Gears most recently, and I'm just looking forward to chatting with everybody today.
Hi, I'm Avi Cool. I'm senior editor for Pathfinder, and I have done a number of editing leads on various Pathfinder books, most recently Secrets of Magic and Lost Omens Ancestry Guide and Lost Omens Grand Bazaar.
All right, so I'm going to start with a question that we got from the Discord. Fairly general. It's a two-parter, and I'm going to actually have everyone answer this. I'm going to start with Jason. Who or what is your favorite antagonist? And then a follow-up question, which just kind of makes the first one a little leading, is what is your favorite dragon heritage?
Oh, boy. Well, I get to go first, so I can either take the easy one or the one that's more personal to me. And I'll say the easy one is the Whispering Tyrant because I love him, but I'm going to go with my personal one, which is Razmir. He is my perfect idea of a villain. He's craven, he's powerful, he hides behind layers of lackeys and masks that hide folks' true intent. He's just a monster in waiting, and I can't wait to look behind the mask a bit more here sometime in Pathfinder Second Edition. I don't know when that'll be. And as far as dragons go, boy, what kind of dragon is my favorite? I don't know. I like them all, but I especially like some of the cool abilities we gave them in Second Edition. So I'll go with Black Dragon. We'll leave it at that. Next.
Yeah, Mike.
So... Okay, I'm actually going to piggyback on Jason here because there is a character who I have had a lot of fun with who intersects with Razmir, which is Narsen, who is not quite an antagonist. He's actually a venture captain of the Pathfinder Society, but he's also a very interesting figure who I think might want to be the next Razmir, or at least in my headcanon, that's where he is. And so I like characters who you both empathize with, but also really worry about. And I think that's why I like that character. Plus, I wrote him, which, endears him to me particularly. Dragons. I've always liked white dragons, and that is definitely because when I was 8 years old, I read The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore, and so my first Dungeons and Dragons exposure was Ingolok Castamazillion, the white dragon that fought a Drow ranger, and so ever since then I've just had a thing for white dragons. And the fact that I come from Alaska, where it's like snow, cold, and ice in the appropriate environment, probably doesn't hurt that.
Yeah,
All right,
I think my favorite antagonist in the setting is Wakena, who is the mummy child god in Mazzali. And there's just so much fun lore around that. And we also are exploring him in more detail in Strength of Thousands coming up. So yeah, he's pretty fun. His whole cult is interesting, and also the resistance in secret to his rule is interesting as well. So I think he's a great antagonist. Favorite dragon, I'm gonna go with sovereign dragons, who are the most powerful of the imperial dragons. I'm biased because we got some really freaking cool art in Bestiary 3 for these dragons, and I also love the way that they cycle through the elements. That mechanic is super cool. So, and they're just kind of the most majestic dragons out there, in my opinion. So,
All right. If I were to answer this, I'm going to go with actually something incredibly general for antagonists. I'm going to pick a type instead of a specific person. I like humans as enemies. I've made jokes before that humans are my favorite race to, or ancestry to play, and also my favorite enemy. And as far as dragon goes, I'm going to have to go with blue dragon because I really like the whole scheming nature of them a whole lot. All right, so I'm going to roll through for some other questions. Also, Mike, Avi, and Jason, if y'all see anything in the chat and want to just pick that up, let me know because I'm just trying to keep up with finding questions because I'm bouncing between the Discord and the Twitch.
So while you're doing that, I'll pick one up from this and toss it around, and I think Mike can probably speak to this. Is aside from firearms, will we ever get more historical niche or underappreciated weapons or armor, such as the Pavis shield, or will we have to simulate those with other weapons somehow? There was another bit there at the end, but that's kind of unrelated. I'll stick to it.
Yeah, there will almost certainly be new historic weapons introduced into this game. Probably not too far in the future, though probably not tomorrow. There are definitely a lot more weapons and armors and things that we have cool ideas for and that we want to, bring into the game. One thing that I've been, talking about that I would really like to see on the armor front is, being from Alaska, Clinkets historically had this very cool kind of wood slat splint armor. And, that's something I would like to see mechanically represented in the game. So I have a strong suspicion that we will be making that happen at some point.
Yeah, I think it's always a little tricky when we look at adding new armors in particular. That's always a big puzzle for the design team, actually, because we have to try and figure out how to set it in with all the other armors, and there's only so many numbers to play with, where it's like, well, we don't give out armor bonuses bigger than about this, and dex bonuses bigger than about this, so that's about all we got. So it's hard sometimes to figure out how to make new ones. But Adam, I'll toss it back to you.
Alrighty. Question says, will we be getting large-sized ancestries anywhere in the near future? Specifically, any chance for centaurs?
Boy.
I hope so.
I knew that would be Mike's answer.
I for my own part, one of the things that's really fantastic that I think has just been absolutely awesome about second edition is just how the rule books and how the Lost Omens have both been working to expand the rules and the things you get to use at your table. We've been doing our best to get new classes out there and new ancestries and new backgrounds and new spells and new feats and new archetypes and all that kind of stuff. And then Lost Omens will come out and just blow me away with some absolutely amazing stuff. The Ancestry Guide is filled with so much fun stuff. I had a blast playing with some characters built out of there for the Secrets of Magic panels. So, I mean, we're certainly interested in doing it. Avi, are you pushing for more in the Lost Omens line?
Oh, I am 100% pro Centaur, and I love sneaking the idea of sneaking in like an ancestry just kind of peppered into Lost Omens books is really fun. I'm not sure if we're ever going to get another book exactly like Lost Omens Ancestry Guide, because the design lift on that was so heavy, and it's only one designer who works on the Lost Omens books. That's Mark Seifter. So it's a bit of an enormous lift for one person to do that much rules content. But I do quite like the idea of throwing in fun, uncommon ancestries such as centaurs in those books. So I am very much pro.
All right, so Kitsune Warlock is asking, what were the tactical function of trenches used in the furrows in Ustalav? Anti-cavalry, anti-siege weapons? Were there cannons or guns in Ustalav way back then? I feel like I should know this, and I don't. So this is kind of like, this might be a test for all of us to see if we actually have an answer.
Let me just say that I love the fact that's a question that could be posed to us, that it could be like, let's talk about the tactical advantages of trench warfare in the Battle of 4714 and the Whispering Tyrant's rebirth. And I'm like, that is a legitimate question, and I have no idea what the answer is, but all of you are so clever and so smart for thinking about it. I don't know what to do.
My head has been out of Ustalav and Carrion Crown for far too long, so it's like, I know I should know this. All right, well, we tried.
I mean, there is never a bad time to have cover or leave difficult terrain behind you in the event that you need to flee.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you could literally answer that in the historical sense of like, what was the value of trenches? Well, it prevented you from being shot, or hit with an arrow, or being run over by a horse. So, I mean, the wager is pretty similar, but there might be a weird fantasy addition to it that was like, yeah, they sent oozes after us, and they just fell in the trenches and couldn't get out. I don't
That's
know.
my headcanon.
All right, this is kind of rules adjacent, but I think it's honest enough. Are there any changes planned for the witch in a future errata?
Well, off the top of my head, I know that we put an incorrect statement in the class opening sidebar where we misstated where the witch gets their spells. So that will be fixed, but that is not a content change. That's just a oops. Literally, as soon as that book shipped to the printer, I started building a witch. And first thing I did was find that error and was like, why? Always happens just when it's too late. You find something.
Yep.
I think that does speak to our general policy about, updates and clarifications on our books. And I think, whenever we release things, there's always going to be some things that slip through the cracks. I honestly firmly believe that we have the best developers and the best editors in the business. But nobody's perfect. And, we always find some things that are like, oh, that's not perfect. That rule could use some tweaking after further consideration and after people got a chance to play with it. It's not quite what we wanted it to do. It's not creating the game space we wanted to create. So I think we have a pretty straightforward policy on this, and that, we kind of evaluate these things and take them piece by piece. And as we see things that are problems and notice things that need some clarification and correction, we move to fix them. And that starts, with kind of the team that was responsible for kind of doing the lion's share of the work on the book. And, then it gets passed around the department and we talk about it. And, we ask folks to say, hey, is this new version better? Is it worse? Does it need some additional corrections? And then ultimately we find a way to get that information out to all of you. Now, the most common way for us to do that is to put it in a new printing of the book and release it as errata. But I think in the we're also looking at some ways to kind of get some of that information out public that doesn't rely on us reprinting the book, because sometimes a book doesn't get a reprint for several years, if at all. So, that means that we need to find a better way to kind of get some of that information out to you. So in regards to which, is there more changes coming? Probably. Can I point to anyone in specific other than the one that Avi just mentioned? No.
All right, this is going to be another one for everybody to answer. Is there any particular Golarion nation that you particularly love, or a favorite real world culture that you were able to take inspiration from and feature in world? We're going to go in order on my screen, starting with Jason.
I
just like putting you on the spot.
Ask me right, Rand again. So, in the very early days of the campaign, way back in 07, 08, back when things were first coming together, everybody kind of took some, we encouraged all of the staff to kind of take dibs on various nations and be like, we want you to be the subject matter expert on this. And And once that was kind of done, there were still a whole bunch of nations left over that we needed to write for and do things with. And I love Razmoran, but one of the things that I enjoy playing with the most is Nirmathas, actually. Is the nation is just, it's one of those places where it's a bunch of small communities that pull together and try and work together, but there's no overarching giant government. There's no king. It's mostly just a council, and it's people trying to live their best lives in the forest. And it's the spirit of, individual communities pulling together and doing their own thing. And that's why I set, Crypt of the Everflame is set in Northern Nirmathas. And I wrote a absolutely gigantic home campaign set in Nirmathas. And, I keep going back there because it's a place that speaks to me and the type of stories that I like to tell. About people, leaving their tiny towns behind and growing and becoming adventurers and heroes and leaders in their own right. And it's a great place to kind of have that happen because it's a little frontier. It's not, and frankly, not a lot has been written about it in Paizo's history. There was, Iron Fang invasion certainly had a lot to do with it. But other than that, it hasn't really been touched on too much other than an adventure or two.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, so it's really hard, right? Because literally the day of the week that you ask me this question, my answer might change, might not be the same. I've gotten to work on certain sections of the world that I've really, really enjoyed. I've gotten to do a lot of work in the lands of the Linorm Kings, starting from when we were sitting in a meeting and we were like, well, what do we call the meta region that includes the lands of the Linorm Kings? And I threw out the Saga lands, and I think I was like the third suggestion and the first one that we were like, yeah, that works. And then it stayed. So that was kind of my first little footprint into this new world. And I got a lot more opportunities to play there. We did some fun adventures in the lands of the Linorm Kings during my time in Pathfinder Society as the lead developer for the Pathfinder line over there. I got a really great opportunity from Eleanor and Luis when I got to write up about the Varki Linorm King Nanku, who's up there, and I've really been looking forward to opportunities to use him in stories and just see people getting excited about him being there. I've also done a lot of stuff with the Crown of the World. Like I said, I could keep going, and anybody who knows me also knows I love monks, which means I love Jalmaray. I really like Golarion. It's so hard for me to pick a favorite.
All right, Avi.
Yeah, so I was going to say Lands of the Linorm Kings as well. It's just so cool. This whole culture around slaying a beast that will curse you when you kill it, and that being what gives you the throne is just fascinating because you'd think that slaying one of those is probably not a good idea. And yet, this entire culture is built around that. So I love that. I love White Estrid as a character. I think that she is so interesting and cool. But since we've already said Lands of the Linorm Kings, I will say that I really enjoy Arcadia. I've had the pleasure to play in a campaign run by Luis Loza, which is actually on the No Direction Network called Valiant, and it is set in Arcadia. And it's a lot of homebrew about the setting, but just the flavor of it is so much fun with this ancient empire that has very high magic, but is just left kind of remnants of that magic throughout the world. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to play in that world. And I can't wait till we get more Arcadia stuff in our actual books, which will happen, I'm sure. So something that I'm looking forward to a lot is getting to spend more time there, hopefully in the Lost Omens line. That would make me so happy.
All right, this one should be pretty easy. Will blood magic be in the new Dark Archives book?
You would think that would be easy, right? Like you would just assume that we could answer that question right now.
And Daigle,
and wrong.
You fell into a trap, Daigle. They're trying to get us to answer that and have been for like a year.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to see y'all's faces.
I feel like that moment in Jurassic Park where he sees one raptor, but you didn't see the other two coming from the side.
All
So no
right.
comment.
Yeah, that's an answer. Trying to find one that's not rulesy enough. Oh well. Ha. Okay, this one's just funny. I've got to ask it. If you start with a mummy ancestry and you catch fire and everything but your bones burn, can you continue playing as a skeleton?
I like the way you think.
Yeah. I see zero reason why not.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I think I don't think it's a rule that we put in the book, but I do think it makes sense to me that if you start out playing a zombie or a mummy and you just get dunked in flesh-eating acid and you're left with nothing but your bones, you should totally be able to just swap ancestry down to skeleton and be like, listen, I've had a rough week.
All right, next one. Hi guys, do you have any plans to release Samurai and Ninja as full classes? And is there any chance we'll see some Tian Sha material as archetypes, ancestry, and versatile heritages? I can answer that second one. I feel like we've already done some manner of Tian Sha material in some of the Lost Omens books, correct?
We've done a small amount. Like we've done some Tian Sha flavored ancestries like Tengu and Kitsune.
Right.
There will definitely be more Tian Sha character options. Like I'm not going to tell you what book they're in, or because who knows exactly what book they'll be in. But yes, there's enough public demand that you can assume you'll be seeing that at some point. People definitely have been asking.
Yeah, and there's enough people on staff that are totally in love with Tian Sha and want to do more with it. So chances are, there's nothing exactly on a calendar right now, but chances are you're going to get some more material down the road. Now, Bowman and Mike, do y'all want to handle the first part of that question? Samurai and Ninja as full classes?
So even in first edition, the Samurai and the Ninja were tricky kind of customers for us. They weren't. It's a very fine line distinction, but they weren't full ordinary classes. They were alt versions of the Cavalier and the Rogue. And once you took levels in them, you couldn't take levels in the other because we didn't want you double dipping on the abilities. I honestly think that the tech of our game makes it so that if we wanted to do like a ninja, right, and introduce more kind of traditional or mythological or anime inspired ninja abilities to the game, we could do that now without necessarily having to reinvent the wheel. We could add a ninja racket, as someone suggested in chat. We could add a bunch of feats that work specifically with that racket, and it would work, right? That would play out well. That said, I don't know if that's the right answer, right? I think one of the things that I'm always challenging the design team with is that whenever we want to bring something new or something existing back into the game, that we look at it with fresh eyes, that we don't just assume that the answer from first edition was the correct answer, that we kind of canvass the staff, that we talk to folks in the department about what they think about it, and kind of just feel out whether or not it needs a different kind of interpretation, or, and in some cases evaluate whether or not our previous interpretation had some problems, right? Some of the things that we did in first edition, I wouldn't do today. So I think it's a complicated problem. And I think we all look at concepts like Samurai and Ninja and are like, those are cool, and they are definitely archetypes that people want to be able to play. But finding a way to kind of bring them to everyone that is both respectful to the culture that they're from and also is fun and meets the goals of our game can take some time. So we have to look for the right place and the right time, and I just don't think we've found it yet. But I wouldn't rule it out because they are pretty awesome.
And that actually kind of answers the next question down. That was like, I'm sure specifics aren't something you can talk about, but can you generally talk about how you decide if a class might return as a full class, a class path, or an archetype? And that you just kind of spoke to that, and kind of you killed two questions with one answer.
I'm old hat at this. I don't know.
All right, this one is one that I think I can answer. It says, we've seen a lot of the Ashen Man and Tigressin the Laughing Fiend as characters in the background of adventures and APs. Are there any plans for these characters? This is not a satisfying answer, but I know that James certainly has plans for the Ashen Man, and I know that we couldn't pay Amber Stewart to not talk about the Laughing Fiend. So, yeah, definitely something on the Ashen Man. Not sure about the Laughing Fiend, but nothing on the schedule right now except for the schedule that lives inside James's brain. All right. Okay. Anything you could say about the new Hero Point deck? Anything would do, as it is still not in sight for a release date. Is that still kind of up in the air?
Mike, we shipped out that to the printer, right? Didn't we? I could have sworn that's gone.
Yeah, I was having trouble remembering.
Sounds right.
I don't know. We're in a pandemic. I can't remember what happened 3 months ago at this point. I think so.
I can tell you about any product I directly worked on or was consulted on, and then maybe like 3 others, and this is not one of those 3.
I mean, I think it's important to note that we did kind of pull back a little bit on expansions that we knew their primary function was having a whole bunch of people sit around the table together. There just wasn't a good reason for us to be like, yeah, let's put out that game where you reach into a bag and pass the bag around and breathe on each other. I mean, we just didn't think that was a good idea. And I know it sounds like I'm making light, and I really don't want to be, because it's deadly serious. But like, that did influence our decisions. And so something like a deck of cards that you have to have at the table and is only really useful if you're playing on a table. Yeah, we kind of held up on that. But that said, I remember doing the work on it, and I remember it leaving the department. So I think it's done and off to the printer, and we're just waiting to get it back. So as to speaking as to what the deck is, it's basically a deck of cards that has a cool effect on it, and you can either use the card as a hero point as normal, or you can use it as the effect. And that's it. That's all it really kind of is. And it's just a fun way to kind of give you kind of some fun different ways to use your hero points. So that's it. It may be held up in the shipping nightmare that everyone in the industry is going through right now. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look at some schedules, and I can't dig those up right now.
I can confirm that it did exist and did go to the printer because I edited it. I will be honest, I do not remember the specifics of what the different hero points did. I wish I could. I wish I could answer your question more helpfully. But it is amazing how quickly information leaves our brains about products when we're no longer working on them. Just the enormous volume of books that we do means that, like, I could have been working on something 3 weeks ago, and you could ask me a question about it and I wouldn't know the answer. Like, sometimes that's how it feels. That is just, as soon as you finish something, you have to make room in your brain for the next thing, and the thing you just finished just like goes flying out of your head. That's how I feel about the Hero Point deck. It was cool though. I do remember enjoying it.
To attest to Avi's statement about stuff going in and out of our heads, Avi reached out to me just the other day. It was like, hey, I was editing that adventure you wrote. This is really cool. And I was like, that's right, I wrote an adventure.
I wrote the Hero Point deck, I think. And literally that's how bad my memory is on this, is that I think I wrote it and I don't really remember.
That
I
is
remember
absolutely
enjoying
the
it.
case. All right, next one down. Do any of you think Darklands is underutilized and needs some love as well? Needs some love as well, sooner or later. I'm gonna jump first on this and then let everyone throw in if they want. Yeah, in the times when we have like big brainstorms of what books we're gonna put on the schedule and stuff like that, I and other people have thrown out the idea of like a big Darklands hardcover, and I think that would be super fun. Um, Yet it's not on the schedule yet, but I will keep pushing for something like that because Darklands get utilized here and there, but it's usually only like a little short foray into it. I'd love to see something that like takes place completely underground and all of that, like the entire thing. So anyway, that's my answer. Anyone else on the panel have any other thoughts? Avi.
Yeah, if you haven't played Abomination Vaults yet, it is definitely a Darklands adjacent adventure. So I would check that out. Like there is a really interesting Drow settlement in Abomination Vaults that I just loved. I believe that's in the second volume, but I wouldn't. I don't know if that's 100% for sure true, but I believe so. And yeah, it's a. I'm not going to spoil what the settlement is like, but it is unlike any other Drow settlement that I have read before. So if you haven't played Abomination Vaults yet, definitely get on that if you're interested in that kind of material.
Yeah. I thought the question about whether we thought the Darklands was underutilized was interesting, because that's something that I kind of keyed in on, in that we talk about Drow, we talk about Dwerger. Like when we think of the Darklands, there's kind of 3 to 5 checkboxes. I want like 20 to 30 checkboxes if we're going to do this thing. You know, I want to get in there. I want to get the obvious stuff, but I also want to get deep and I want to get weird. And I want to make sure that whenever we do it when we've got the time to really figure out what the best way to do that is.
Love weird.
Yeah,
Definitely love
I think for my part, looking at the Darklands, I think there's a lot of fun adventures to be had, you know, in that kind of setting. I think we have to do a lot of long, hard looks at what the Darklands is and what it says about our world and what some of the ancestries and people that live down there and how they are honestly treated and viewed. And some of it definitely needs a lot harder looks and some serious work. So I think, and that's as generous as I can say it. So you know, I think it's something I'd love to do, but I think it's going to take a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's pretty tricky. So I'll leave it at that.
I was just scrolling through and I see, did Old Mage Yatimbe and Baba Yaga ever date? Which I know they're going off that illustration from, was that Legends? And
Yes, that's in
unless you
Legends.
call having heated discussions over tea dating, no, not in any romantic sense, but they hang out every now and then.
Heated discussions over tea does kind of sound like potentially a good date, though, right? Like,
I think if they wanted to make it work, they absolutely could.
I've got one. Any more love for Red Mantis Assassins besides the one mentioned in yesterday's panel? I'm assuming the reference to yesterday's panel is the adventure, and so if it was that's not what you're talking about, then there is a digital one shot that will be coming out not too far from now. That is Red Mantis, totally Red Mantis Assassin related. But other than that, I don't think we have anything on the schedule.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think there's anything else either. But I actually somehow didn't know about the Red Mantis adventure, out of the loop about that one, and that sounds awesome.
I was talking
Thirsty's
to Thirsty when he was creating the pre-gens for it, and he was like, hey, how do I make this character? And I was like, okay, so you need this feat, and you want to do this thing here, and definitely make sure they've got this. I'm quite excited about it, but it's somebody else's story to tell more details than that about. So
All right. Will the inventor gunslinger have pre-gen characters created along those lines? Why did the summoner and magus not have any created? I'm assuming that you're asking about that for org play, and I think the most direct answer is time. That is why they do not have them yet.
Yeah, I
Mike,
mean,
you
I don't want to
normally
speak for
go-
OP. I don't want to speak for OP, but I know they like to have pre-gens of all of our classes.
Yep.
But yeah, it comes down to time and resources, right? You know, you got adventures to put out and stuff. So, I don't want to speak for them, but I can't help but assume that they're planning on doing them. I just don't know when, and maybe they're not, and I'm speaking off the cuff, and I will get an angry email. I don't know. We'll see. What did you just sign us up for? Sorry.
So this is kind of a tag along question for the previous Darklands things. Speaking of Darklands, any word on Drow and other Darklands ancestries coming back to second edition? Seems like a major piece missing from first edition.
I think Jason actually answered this question a little bit earlier when he noted that there were a lot of things that we wanted to make sure if we're going to do them, we do them right, and we take a good, long, hard look at how to present them and how to frame them and how to make sure that we're not just spitting out material for the sake of spitting out material. We're putting things out there that we feel good about, that we know we've put all of the necessary thought and effort into to do the correct way and in the proper context. And so that's not just something we're going to throw randomly into a book. That's something we're going to think hard about and find the right place and the right time if we're going to tackle it.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it in chat that like Cobalt Town was interesting in the Band of Bravo stream that I did. I specifically set it down in the Darklands and spent like a lot of time seriously trying to figure out a better way to present the various peoples and ancestries, and that include the Drow, right? You know, but it's tough. It's a lot of work, and it's worthwhile, but I just don't know that we're there yet. So.
There's definitely interest, I think, inside the company to do this, and then there's also some there's some back and forth. Everyone has different feelings about how, if we do tackle this, what we would do, if we should tackle it at all. I think it would be interesting to tackle and to really do that work. That's the kind of work that I am excited about doing, but. Yeah, as everyone's saying, we don't have that on the schedule yet, but I think that it would be interesting to tackle, and I think it would be cool if we have the chance to do so.
Absolutely. All right, there's a couple of questions. There's some people that are talking about the Inquisitor class, and I think one answer will answer both of these questions. But it said, will we see the Inquisitor class at some point, or do you feel they're covered by the Thaumaturge and the current cleric?
I think that is a difficult question to answer when the Thaumaturge hasn't even gone into playtest yet. Because as many members of my team have said before, when we do a playtest, it is really a playtest. It is not a preview. We are open to change. We often put in mechanics that we want to explore. Sometimes things we hope will stay in the class, and sometimes things where we're like, I don't know, this could be really good. This could be a dumb idea. Like, let's find out from the community, because none of us can say for sure. And so that is a question that is very hard to answer when one of the major components of the question is very much still a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, see. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think just, you know, playtesting for us is always kind of an interesting thing, and I think, you know, in the past there have been times where it's like, yeah, we really do throw things out that we think are experimental, that we're like, I'm not sure if people are going to buy this. Let's try. And your feedback and your thoughts on it really do help guide our directions and our decisions, because ultimately we want you all to enjoy these games and have fun with them. And if we're not making things in the way that you find fun and enjoyable, well, then, you know, what are we doing? It's not about what I necessarily want to see in a game. I mean, you know, I am a voice among many, but but ultimately the fans and the people playing this game have to get what they want to see out of these things. So, our playtests are legit. They're honest. They're open. And we, I always prepare folks to say, hey, your precious children that you have put out in the world are going to go out there and they're going to come back with some bloody noses, and we're going to have to figure out how to fix that and make it better. And, get ready for it. So I'm always excited whenever I see a playtest upcoming, and how this works into the previous question, is an ongoing discussion.
I think that the Thaumaturge, just from what I have read, and that was just doing approvals on the playtest document earlier this week, I think the flavor for the Thaumaturge is really different than the kind of flavor that one would expect from an Inquisitor. But I could totally see like an archetype, Inquisitor archetype that could slap onto a cleric, perhaps. People love themselves their Inquisitor from first edition.
Yeah, I mean,
good job, us 6 years ago.
It's more like 10 now, actually.
Oh, no.
Not to make you feel old, but it was more like 10.
Here's a question that's going to have a quick but unsatisfying answer. Will Paizo Infinity allow VTT packages? My first answer would be get in touch with Mark Moreland. That sounds like way too niche of an answer that I do not know enough about Infinity. If anyone else here does, you can jump in, but I think Moreland is the best person to ask. All right.
Yeah, I read a bunch of that, and I don't want to speak off the cuff. No, never mind. I have half knowledge that I'm not sure is verified, so I probably shouldn't say anything. But yeah, that's it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And
if anybody else has better knowledge, I'm open, but I don't.
And of course, since this is a Q&A that Jason is on the panel for, when do we get the Dino Fort spell?
No, I knew it. I knew you were going to ask it. I knew you were going to fall victim to their tricks. This is the second Velociraptor coming to get you, Daigle. The third one's waiting to feast on your guts. I think Dinosaur Fort. Next, we're going to be talking about Eye of Robes. Dinosaur Fort is still a thing that, I still want to sneak into a book, but I need to be able to do like a jokey April Fool's book. I don't know. It is such a ludicrous. I'm not going to lie. We wrote it up at one point in time. It exists. It's in a cut file somewhere, and we just haven't been able to justify putting it anywhere because it's like 10th level and it's ridiculous. It summons like dinosaurs that march around on patrol or something. I don't even like. At one point in time, we're like, wait, is the fort made of dinosaurs or is it on a dinosaur? Or there was a bunch of different ways we could go. We got like 4 versions of it, and I just don't know. I don't know where we're gonna put it. Maybe it should be its own case file in Dark Archive. We'll talk to James Case about it and see if we can slip it in as the mysterious dinosaur fort case. I don't know. That's all I got.
I have to say, Eye of Robes did make it into an upcoming book.
Oh no!
So keep it. I hate to be the one to break the news, except I don't really hate it. So keep your eyes peeled for the Eye of Robes in an upcoming book. It's not under that name, but we did sneak it in there. Dinosaur Fort. When I was first a contractor working on second edition, the rule book, the core rule book. I didn't know any of the context of the inside joke behind Dinosaur Fort, and I was editing the spells and came across this, and I'm like, what? This is so bonkers, and I love it so much, and I had no idea that it was basically a meme. And then when I look at the spells again and see that it was gone, I was so sad. R.I.P. to Dinosaur Fort, the spell that never lived, but it almost did.
All right, here's another favorites question. What's your favorite archetype and why? And we're going to go down the line. I'm actually just torturing y'all with these. I actually really dislike favorite questions because, like Mike was saying earlier, it's like depending on the day of when you ask me, it very well could change. Yeah. So, Jason, do you have a favorite
Like,
archetype?
I mean, I don't know that I have a favorite archetype. For me, they're so situational based on the campaign that you're trying to run. I love the way that archetypes work in second edition, that you can be like, all right, everybody, we're going to have a full pirate crew. Everybody's playing a pirate, so everybody gets the pirate archetype for free. And now we're all pirates, and you're the pirate sorcerer, and you're the pirate fighter, and you're the pirate, cleric. So for me, it's all about what's right for the campaign and the world, and kind of the flexibility that it gives you to tell the stories you want to tell. So I don't know that I actually have a favorite one. I suppose I could dig deeper and come up with something, but I'm going to pass it along and see if I can think of something.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that is hard. I am going to go with the Shadowcaster, because that is the archetype I wrote that was published most recently. and because it was so fun when I was working on it, because I remember the milestones so clearly. I had done some work on the APG, and then I had talked to Mark afterwards, and Mark was like, Mike, you did some really interesting stuff here, but this is the APG, and you maybe just went a little too wahoo with it. And so then I was working on the Shadowcaster, and I was like, all right, you remember your APG feedback. Keep that in mind. Keep it clean. Keep it straightforward. And I sent in my milestone, and Mark was like, so here's the thing, Mike. I knew when I assigned this to you that I had assigned it to Mike Sayre, and I wanted you to go a little more wahoo than this. So please, whatever restraints you put on yourself during the first half of this assignment, please remove them while you finish this.
That's amazing. For me, I'm going to say weapon improviser, because that's like, there's nothing over the top, like physics defying ridiculousness about it, but it's a very kind of mundane level ridiculous that I'm just, you can imagine just being very fun in low magic campaigns, bar brawls, just breaking chairs over your knee and flinging chair legs at people. Like, what more could you ask for? So yeah, weapon improviser.
All right.
I'm not going to lie. I'm
one.
just looking at files from Book of the Dead to see if there's any spoiler I can throw out.
All right. So should we
there's
move
an
on to
undead
another
slayer.
question?
That's pretty cool.
Or are we going to hold Jason to picking something?
No. I was just looking at the undead slayer. It's awesome, but I won't say anymore because I'm just gonna get people mad for digging through files that I haven't even gone through edit yet.
Hold up. No promises that anything that hasn't gone through edit is actually going in the book. But I mean, it probably is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just causing mischief now. I really shouldn't be.
That's always fun.
Continue.
All right, so will there be a siege type subsystems in future AP once Guns and Gears comes out? I know very few of you work on APs. Avi edits them, but
yeah, I mean, as far as the APs we have coming up in the immediate future, it's not thematically relevant, as far as I know, thinking about the next two Pathfinder APs. So, but I believe there might be relevant content in Kingmaker. So that, I think, is where you're going to want to look for siege stuff. Don't quote me on that 100%, because I haven't been working on Kingmaker too much myself. We've had to do some division of labor to keep people going on Kingmaker while the rest of us keep the other books afloat. So I'm not as well versed in it, but I believe, okay, now I'm feeling the fear, but I believe that there is going to be siege material in there.
Yeah, one thing to note with Guns and Gears is that all of the siege engines we put in there don't actually require a subsystem. They plug directly into the 3-action economy that everybody else uses when they play the game. Like, they go right into that. So the question and then the conclusion, the with guns and gears, will it be in an AP? These are actually two completely separate buckets, right? One does not necessarily inform the other, because there may be a situation where an AP really does need a good siege system to make a scene move at a certain pacing or whatever, and that may or may not actually use the base siege engines from guns and gears. It really depends on what the adventure calls for.
I will say that the siege engine rules, I after going through and taking my pass on Guns and Gears when it was making its way out the door, the siege engine rules impress the hell out of me. They're so much fun. They're so well put together. They're evocative and in how you like, oh, I'm going to spend this many actions to load, and we need somebody to spend some actions to aim, and then we're going to fire. And it because you have to spend so much to make it happen, it allows the rules to be like, yeah, you don't want to get hit by a catapult. That's real bad. I mean, it's if you are 3rd level and you get hit by a catapult, you're gonna have a bad day. It's bad news. Now the catapult has trouble aiming at you because you're a person, but the rules for it are really evocative. They're the sort of thing I love about 2nd edition. That the actions and the way that they play out make your turn by default kind of narrative, right? Oh, I'm going to do this, and then my next action is going to be this, and my next action is going to be that. And catapults fit into that great. Ballistas fit into that great, right? I don't think you can sneak attack with the ballista, but I don't know. We'll see.
Don't give anyone.
You can at least with a backpack ballista.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yes. It pops up off your back, doesn't it? Yes.
It does. Yeah. There's some great art that is in the Gears deck, which is of this, medieval-looking backpack with this ballista that pops up out of like a mechanism in the back.
It turns you into a medieval predator.
Oh, that's so good. My favorite thing about Guns and Gears, this is tangential, but my favorite thing about Guns and Gears is that we chose some options, and really Mike chose some options that are completely ludicrous, but they don't come from a place of ignorance. Like, Mike, you know a lot about guns, and we did a lot of, on the writer's end and the designer's end, they did a lot of research on historical weapons and, which ones work and which ones actually were not really good ideas. And, collectively as a creative team, we made the decision to not care about what works in the real world. And Ballista Backpack is a great example of that.
Sometimes you just got to let the fun win, right?
Exactly.
I mean, not everything has to be like, well, I don't really see how that would work. it's come on. We got fire-breathing dragons. We can have a backpack catapult.
I had some great moments writing Guns and Gears where I would be in an introduction where I would be like, in the real world, black powder moved in this way, and we saw these certain innovations in firearms happened. Meanwhile, in Golarion, the world blew up and a god fell from the sky, and some dwarves got a hold of black powder that had been transferred across Vudra from over here. And also sometimes they have clockwork reloaders. Like, there's this thread that I ran throughout so many of the introductions of this, where it starts with if you know something about guns, you might know this. Here's why that does not apply to this thing over here.
I love that approach because that makes it a fantasy book, right? This is not a war game. This is a fantasy game. And it's important to me at least, in terms of our philosophy for 2nd edition, to really lean into that fantasy in a way that can be played so those classes that would otherwise maybe be a bit more grounded in reality can have the same level of fantasy as a wizard.
So, Adam, we've been asked to make sure we wrap it here at 5-2, which it is right now.
Oh,
so,
okay. All right.
Unless there's something that requires one-word answers, we should probably call it good.
I just want to ask you this ridiculous one. When will you get proper Battle Goat Village into an AP or a one-shot? Is Battle Goat something related to you, Jason?
Yes,
from your-
yes, it's another dumb thing from one of my streams. They were in a village where everyone developed magic powers, and 2 goat herders were using their magic powers to make their goats fight each other over the one scrap of land. And one of them awakened a bunch of their goats and had awakened battle goats. And they went rampaging through the town, and for the entire rest of the stream, me and the cast would scream, "Battle goats!" So, yeah, I'm going to find a way to squeeze those into something else in the future. We have not seen the end of Battle Goats. I just don't know where they'll pop up next. Maybe I'll do a standalone Battle Goat board game. How about that?
I just have to note, my favorite thing about this panel was that Adam knew someone here was responsible for Battle Goats, but was not actually sure who that could be. And I can't think of many groups where you could put them together and not know which person was responsible for Battle Goats.
Yeah, could be anybody. That's a perfect note to wrap things. So,
Yep.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
So we're gonna wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for showing up. And also thank my fellow colleagues and friends and panelists up here, giving answers as best we can. Once again, thank you all so much, and we'll be in the Discord answering further questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thank you.